If the eyes are the window to the soul, then what happens when they observe evil? Think about that and be sure to stick around after the intro. What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and today I'm back with another book review for you guys. Today's Tuesday. I normally try to get videos out on Mondays, but I was super busy this weekend and didn't have a chance. But hopefully we'll still get 3 videos out for you guys this week. If you're returning to the channel, thanks for coming back and sticking around. If you happen to be new, I read a lot of indie and small press horror, a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi. So if any of that sounds like something you are interested in, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. Check out some of the other content on the channel, and maybe you'll discover a book that you enjoy. But for today's book review, we're going to be talking about Tome by Jeffery. This is book 2 in his Juniper trilogy, Juniper saga, whatever you would like to call it. And book 1, entitled Juniper, I read last month in October, I believe. It's November, yeah. I read it last month in October. I really enjoyed that one. I enjoyed this one even more so. Even though this is a sequel chronologically to, or sequel publishing-wise to Juniper, this book actually takes place as a prequel prior to the events of Juniper, just so you know. But we are returning once again to the strange little sort of haggard town of Juniper. But this time around, we're trading the dusty, scorching heat for this dreary, gloomy, unrelenting, unceasing downpour. It just is pouring rain throughout this entire book. It really makes for this doomy, gloomy, dreary, sort of depressing, oppressive type of atmosphere. I think that really lends to the narrative and the story that's being told here. Most of the story takes place in the Juniper Correctional Facility. This is a prison story. And that facility itself, it's just saturated with not only the rain, but these deplorable men and this corruptible evil that seems to be seeping right into its very foundations. So prison stories can be pretty hit or miss with me most of the time, but Tome, it happened to hit all the right beats. It did everything I wanted a prison story to do. From the really savage opening to the shocking conclusion, Jeffery's prose and narrative prowess had my attention imprisoned within its clutches. See what I did there? Imprisoned. It's a prison story. Imprisoned. Sorry, I'll move on. He had my attention imprisoned within its clutches basically the whole way through. And I think what really worked for me was that this story wasn't focusing on the actual prison itself. That's not to say that it wasn't really detailed and that Ross didn't really do the prison itself justice, because he surely did. You know, from the crumbling bricks to the just unsanitary infirmary to the filthy hallways to the worn out carpets in the library. It was a very detailed and vivid picture of the prison that he painted, but that wasn't the focus. The focus here were the characters. The characters were fantastic. They were horrible, horrible people, most of them. But these are the people that find themselves confined within the walls of the prison, whether it's through incarceration, greed, loyalty, duty, all that kind of stuff. That's the heart and soul of the story were the characters. And that's what I think really put this above any other prison stories or most other prison stories that I've either watched or read, focusing more on the characters than the actual prison side of it itself. So Tome is not a book for the faint of heart for a myriad of different reasons, but first and foremost is the overt racism on display here. I do think it's important that you read the afterforward for the book, where Ross is talking about adding in this racism, that it's the characters and sort of the culture on display here, and that, he consulted beta readers and people of color to not make it be offensive per se, but to make it feel real, and make it be a real reflection of sort of real life. He does a great job of sort of delving into and exploring how this ideology, this racism has manifested and infested not only the prison culture, but has been deeply ingrained, being passed down from one generation to the next. And a lot of people, especially in the American South, where this book takes place, it's a great reflection of the real life systematic racism that is really prevalent in our current culture, the current society that we live in today. So I thought he did a great job of incorporating that into the story, about making it and turning it to be an important social issue that he's sort of shedding a light on. Second is just the sheer brutality and depictions of grisly violence on display here. He didn't hold anything back in the blood and gore department, but that's not to say it's not extreme splatterpunk, super in your face, over the top style violence. It's more so the gruesome and horrifying details of reading a homicide crime scene report, sort of like that, sort of like True Detective, really dark, gritty noir type stuff. That is more the violence sort of on display here. And Jeffery, he wrote, once he was able to write a scene that for me was one of the most revolting and stomach churning scenes I believe I've ever read. It involved Warden Fleming, one of the characters, the warden of the prison, at his house. And that's all I'll say about it. If you've read the book, you probably know what scene I'm talking about. If not, you'll just have to read the book for yourself and endure that scene for yourself as well. So as I said at the beginning, this is a book 2, and I think it's going to be a trilogy. Book 1 being Juniper. You don't have to read book 1 before reading this one. This does work as a standalone, but I would suggest you read Juniper first and then read Tome, even though this is a prequel. The reason being so is we see some characters return from Juniper. They show up in here, and especially as the events of this book unfolded towards the end, and once it's wrapped up, it definitely made me see Juniper and what happened in that book through a completely different lens based off of what happened here. Also, I think you can really see a definite growth in Jeffrey's writing and his growth as an author between Juniper and Tome. And that's not to say Juniper was bad. I really enjoyed that one. This one was even better. His writing here, it's more detailed and more nuanced and more streamlined. And I think for me, it made for an overall cleaner and more enjoyable reading experience. But both books are good, but this one was a lot better than Juniper. And Juniper, like I said, gave that one 4 stars. This one was so much better as far as the writing was concerned. You can really see a definite growth in Jeffery as an author. And I'm excited to see his next book and see how much more he's grown even since this one. So back to the question I posed at the very beginning of the review. If the eyes are the window to the soul, then what happens when they observe evil? Especially when that evil is hidden within the power of the written word. Does that lead to the corruption and desolation of one's soul, an insatiable, festering evil that just swells to bursting within you? Do you succumb to that and allow yourself to be swallowed by the abyss? Or do you dig down deep, search within yourself, and grasp onto that one sliver of goodness, that one bright shining light to hold the darkness at bay? That is the story of Tome. It's a much grander story than a prison in a little forgotten town. It's a story as old as time itself. It is the story of good versus evil. So let's close this out. In closing, electrifyingly powerful, pulsing with fear, grief, lust, and the vile intentions of man. Tome by Ross Jeffery weaves an eerie, grim, and gritty narrative populated by greasy, loathsome, yet entirely compelling characters. Expert pacing, mounting dread, and an unsettling atmosphere culminate in a uniquely scary experience that will give you chills. Ross Jeffery, he's definitely an author to look out for, and I cannot wait to see what leaks out of his dark and disturbing mind next onto the page. I'm giving Tome 4.5 out of 5 stars, which will round up to 5 for Amazon and Goodreads. Thoroughly enjoy this so much. I like Juniper, like I said, but this one was so much better. Just all around a great, creepy, scary, dreadful, just dark prison story. Tons of fun. I did receive this from Ross for review consideration. He actually sent me an ARC that had like the not for resale bar across it quite a long time ago. He made some revisions to it and sent out a new one. And it just came out like 1 or 2 weeks ago. It's available now. I know it's free on Kindle Unlimited. It's on Kindle. It's on Amazon. Definitely check it out. I had a ton of fun with it. But that's been my 4.5 star review of Tome by Ross Jeffery. That's all I have for you guys today. So thank you for spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.